right, guys, so today we're going to talk about the web design process. We've done a little bit about this before, a little bit with this earlier, but we'll dive into it a little bit more. So user interface 101 is basically we want to try to deliver the information in the best way possible, making things simple and clean and easy for the user to understand. This is really important that you wear your empathy cap and put yourself in, or maybe your empathy shoes, because you're going to put yourself in the user's shoes. What sorts of things are the users going to want or need, and to feel good, to feel, basically that you can deliver on what you're promising via this website. Make things easy on them, right? Don't make them think. When you learn how to drive a car, right, you had to do a lot of thinking, right? And then after a while, it kind of became super easy. If you use that steering wheel, right, you had to understand or learn how that worked. We want to use the conventions that they're used to, that's out there, so that they don't have to think about, oh, if I click this button, am I going to the right spot? Am I going to go to my shopping cart? Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? I don't want to have to think, right? Because we don't want to give them that cognitive overload. So think about user experience. That's part of putting yourself in the user's shoes. Like, does this aesthetic appeal to my target market? Does the website have conventions that users are used to so that they don't have to think too hard? Is there a breathing room for all the elements? That sort of thing. Research users. We haven't really talked about that in this class. We've talked about like the target market, but in web design, there's a thing called personas. There might even be in just kind of regular retail stuff. But you think about your actual client, you write up a list about them, like who they are, what they like, and this kind of helps you get into that empathetic way of thinking. Who is my target market? What do they do for fun, and so on and so forth? What sort of foods do they like? Gives you kind of an understanding of them, or you try to anyway. Okay. And then last but not least, let go of pixel perfect design. I couldn't agree with this more. However, I do have to say when I worked at Neva, they had a whole thing about everything had to be, when you did a layout for them, it had to be this number of pixels. So it was pixel perfect design, but I'm hoping that maybe they're getting away from that now that we have, we have responsive then. It's just kind of like, at this size, we want it to be at these resolutions. Okay. But that's that. Okay. So the role of Photoshop is basically to show a single moment in time, and there's no real sort of interaction in Photoshop. You can't do any sort of interactivity design there, right? So it doesn't show interactivity. You can't show like the hover state, for example, unless you want to like have one button that shows the hover state, and it's just kind of weird, but that's not necessary. It doesn't show responsiveness. So your comp, for example, or your files are not going to show like how something goes from a large screen to a mobile screen. And no code, that can be a benefit if you're just trying to design something or get something kind of laid out. So you can use layer comps to work on multiple pages and options, and that way you can have different things pulled together in one file. So that's nice. Artboard sizes, you can change your artboard sizes for mobile or tablet or whatever, so you can have something that's alongside that's, again, still kind of pulling on and using some of the same resources. You can do this in Illustrator too. So there you go. And it's easier for clients to see and visualize what's going on. So these are the steps. We're going to talk about research. There's a link in this slide for how to create personas, a step-by-step guide of personas. So we want to think about our target. Who is our target market? Yeah, personas. Who are those individual people, right? I think it's easier to relate to a specific person than it is to a large group of people. And so that's why personas were developed, to help people get into that empathetic space mindset. Competition. We want to know who our client has as their competition. We can say, oh, this person has here we go. Maybe I was just listening to this thing on Chicken Bistro, and Chicken Bistro has like Boston Market as a competitor. Well, how does Chicken Bistro stand out from Boston Market? So those are things that you kind of want to think about, and maybe highlight the strengths of the brand versus the competition. Like, what's lacking in the competition? How does the brand kind of beat out on that? So just kind of being aware of that information is good. What are the goals of your client, and what are the goals of your user? That would be the person using the website. Do they have a specific task in mind when they show up? Right? YouTube could be like, I want to find tutorials on XYZ. Well, I'm going to use the search bar. I'm going to type in my values of what I want to look for, and voila, there's a bunch of results for me. That's a very quick and effective way to accomplish a user goal. Business goals, right? What are the goals of your client? What are their dreams and aspirations? Branding. Branding is super, super important, especially in this world today when there are so many things competing for your eyeballs. So there you go. All right. So here's some persona ideas, right? So here's the new breed of game enthusiasts. So you can see each person has a different avatar. So we've got our avatar here. And then we have kind of a title descriptor and a small quote from this person. And this will give you like kind of a good or overall feel of what's important to this person. So you can start designing with these people in mind. Okay. My note on this is like, being detailed is good, but you don't have to be this detailed. You can make just a basic wireframe when you like have a discussion with a client. I've done this a number of times where I just pull out a pencil and paper and I just start kind of laying something out pretty simply. But still, nonetheless, right, we could just have a big like frame here where the coastal capital image is, and you could just say something like actual or stylized coastal vignette, right, for what goes there. It doesn't have to be super detailed. These are beautiful, love them, think they're great, but it doesn't have to be that detailed. This is what's called a screen flow. So like, this is probably some kind of money management app. And this basically says, hey, I'm going to click on this money management app icon. When I go there, what happens? I get this open screen. I can sign in. When I sign in, this is what I get when I sign in. I have like my account page essentially. I can click this for search. I can click this for finding my nearest financial representative office. And I can save. So, all these little arrows basically go to different screens based off of what you've done, what you've clicked, where you're going from there. So screen flows are very helpful to let you know what sort of things are expected, what kind of user interaction you expect as well. So when you're designing for apps, for example. All right. It also works for websites as well. So look and feel, right? We're going to talk about that. We want to create the look and feel before the full comp. This kind of helps us get on the same page with our client. You know, helps them be part of the design process, helps them take partial ownership of the design process. Because when you go straight into comps, you know, a client might feel like their power, their agency, that's the word I was looking for, that their agency has been taken from them. And so that's why we want to kind of get the client on board so that they can feel like they're part of this process and they feel like they have a say. All right. So here you can see we have two different style tiles on the site. There are basically examples here. So here's one, warm, cool. So this is the style tile that we're going to do today or something like it. And that gives you an idea what that looks like. All right. Stylescapes is kind of neat. I listened to the link that's in the speaker notes. This is kind of what they look like. So it's kind of another version of style tiles, but a little different. The person that does this usually prints them out, and these are like they're 10 inches tall by, I want to say 50 some odd inches, and he has them printed at Kinko's and it has them mounted. And so this is kind of a color version, two stylescapes for the same brand, different feels. What we're going to do today, we're also going to do some wireframes. Yeah. And wireframes are just kind of like a sort of just really kind of simplified version of what your website's going to look like. Again, it's kind of nice to present to clients so that they can, you know, say, hey, I like this, or no, I don't like that. You can give them some agency and empower them a little bit so that they can feel good about your design and that they were part of the process. It makes for simple layouts, kind of gets kind of like thumbnails do, right? They give you that sort of sense of hierarchy and composition. You can make sure that you've met all the requirements that are necessary for whatever the project is. You can see that sort of contrast, right? We're going to do our craft stuff, right? Contrast, repetition, we can see like, you know, this has 3, this has 4. We've got this kind of set of repetition here. So here's like some base wireframes, and here's some kind of grayscale wireframes. Alignment, this can help us check our alignment for things and see like if something's too crowded or too far away. Gives us a sense of proximity. All right. All right, then, you know, here's some other examples of wireframes. And the thing about wireframes is you only want variations on gray, no color. So white, black, and variations on gray, no color. And that's primarily so that you can see what the website looks like from a pure hierarchical structure. You don't want to have color in these to draw the eye. You want just the composition itself to make the case for you. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. So this is a layout for screen or page, basically. All right. Weird. All right. So here's an example wireframe. Here's another example wireframe. And like at the bottom here, there's like these annotations. Here's another example wireframe. So here we can see like a tooltip. So when the user scrolls over this, this is a little tooltip. That's what that looks like. Or when the user scrolls over this, this is a little tooltip as well. So it kind of gives us a feel for like, oh, what happens with this when I interact with this calendar. So there's ways that you can hint at interaction, but it's not interactive. Okay. So here's an example, wireframe versus comp. And you can see how the wireframe informed the comp. Yeah, our buttons weren't here in the wireframe, but maybe that was part of the conversation. Hey, we need to make sure that people know that they can donate or volunteer. Let's put some buttons there. Okay. Thank you, client. That's important. Right? Yes, 2 different donate buttons too. So there's this article here. I'm going to put this into the speaker notes when I get a moment. Let me make a note of that. Slide 17. Speaker notes. Wait. Because it's my understanding if you click on that in the file, the Photoshop of the slides, it just goes to the next page and doesn't give you the link. I want to make sure you have the links available to you. Yes.
So we're gonna make one black and white.
Uh-huh.
Then we're gonna make one that's like in between this and the final.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll use our wireframes to make comps. And so a comp is just kind of like before the final. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so that's your comp, is where you start kind of dropping stuff in and playing around with color and typeface and all of that good stuff. And then this, so this would be like a comp, right? Does it have actual content in it? Yeah, you know, a comp would include warrants and that sort of thing, so not actual content. But that's when you start kind of bringing in the color.
Yeah.
And again, it's this kind of another step in the process. And then your finals would be like, okay, this is what I'm going to deliver. There's another one. Right. So, and you can see there's some little changes here and there. So our programs, yeah. So this nav basically got moved down here, and then Wellstone Action became its logo title stuff. Then there's all this up top here. So, yep. So you can see like there can be changes between a wireframe and a final design, and that's a good thing. All right. You don't have to use anything special. We can download templates. There's some link here to Smashing Magazine and some printable sketching and wireframe note-taking templates in PDF form. And then software, right? Illustrator, Photoshop will do it. It's just not, I just don't think it's as simple or as straightforward or as easy as Illustrator. Because I spent a lot of time yesterday in Photoshop thinking that would save you some time, and it was awful. So we're going to do this in Illustrator because we can use Illustrator to export to Photoshop. You can save an Illustrator file as Photoshop, and then you've got all the layers where all the things are anyway. So that's a good thing. You can use mockups for your wireframes, diagrams.net, Sketch. I think you might even be able to use Google Draw if you wanted to, and so on and so forth. But none of these things, and even Adobe XD, I researched this yesterday, Adobe XD has no direct export to Photoshop. Not without paying money. Not in a good way, you know. It's, yeah. Whoa, very frustrating.
I actually just switched to Photoshop with my wireframe.
Did you?
Comps because for that reason.
For exactly that reason. Yeah, exactly.
Since you want the BSD file at the end of the project.
Exactly.
I animated the extra stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why I was thinking let's start this in Photoshop. But I just ran into a lot. Have you what have you done as far as like Photoshop wireframing goes? I mean, just started out with a grid and.
No, I did the main page. I'll probably do the menu page next, but I think I'm gonna stop this and do work on the style sheets first.
Okay, yeah. You need the style tiles, right? And you need 2 different wireframes for each of your layouts, and so Yeah, that can be a lot of work, a lot of work. Especially like, when, these boxes and these little icons and so on and so forth. Did you find an icon library, or did you use what I put up there initially? Because I just deleted the Photoshop first. Just put up there. But because I figured, well, we're just going to use Illustrator today. That's a little bit easier, a little bit easier. Okay. And like I said, we can export. All right. Let's see here. What else? So yeah, we're going to do our stuff in Illustrator today, but these are all options for you. And yeah, wireframes, we want to use a grid. I'll show you how to do that in Illustrator if you guys don't know already. Wireframe. Well, this Chrome extension that you can check out, and it'll show you like, oh, how many columns does this thing have? And you can try creating wireframes from real sites, so it'll give you some practice. Yeah, write notes, spend some time on sketches. There is an article here, and both of these links are in the speaker notes, and this is the last slide.